From Dr. Chris Nicol, and I'm Ed Things, Dean of the Faculty of Science.
Thanks very much for coming out tonight and for the chance to talk to you. I think Rob made some very good points here. What we're going to try to do is cover things in a bit of a sequence here where we don't actually repeat the pieces which have come from people you've already heard from. And so the question that was posed by SACPA, our recent cuts to Alberta post-secondary education justifiable. Well, this is only really, of course, one part of the question. I think there are two distinct challenges that Alberta's post-secondary educational system is facing right now. One is a monetary element, and the other element is a philosophical one. And to deal with both of these, a united approach should really be taken on the part of the system itself and for the institutions. Unfortunately, at this point, it doesn't seem that there's too much coherence in the positions that a number of the institutions are staking out. They seem to be adopting a bit of an all people for themselves kind of a philosophy. We're already seeing, for example, fairly significant staffing reductions at university to the significant north of us, and things are not probably over there yet. So the public debate, I think, needs to be engaged around encouraging the institutions to work together to actually speak with a common voice around this issue. The system as a whole, as Rob said to you, in the 2012-13 fiscal year, system allocation for operating support to post-secondary education institutions was $2.16 billion, which sees like a lot of money. And this has been reduced to 2.01 or $146 million to the system as a whole. So that's 6.8% for the system, but in the context of the universities, the major universities in the province which do research, this is a 7.3% cut, when we were promised the 2% increase for the next 2 years, stable funding, a written commitment made by the Government of Alberta last year to provide a stable and sustainable future for the system. And now we're faced with finding, essentially, in this community, from the University of Lethbridge, blowing $12 million, from the college, another $5–6 million in terms of their reductions. So what does that mean in terms of impact on the economy? Most of the funds in these institutions are spent on people. The people who deliver the programs for the benefit of the students and for the benefit of future generations. Of the $160 million odd budget in the University of Lethbridge in terms of operating funds, about 77% of that, close to 80% of that, goes towards staffing and support for people who deliver the programs. So that's about $9 million of a cut just in terms of the staffing element, if you were to take those $12 million out of the system, or about 100 or so positions. And I'm not just talking about professors, this is positions in general. The university employs about 1,200 people. College employs a significant number of people as well, of course. So just thinking of the university, for example, we have people who work in caretaking, we've got people who work in libraries, we've got people who work in food services and so forth. So we're talking about 100 people. What kind of an impact does that have on the economy? For every dollar spent in the economy, it has an impact in terms of additional spending beyond that. So when people get paid at the university or at the college, they go out to buy cars, they buy other things, and so the net impact in the aggregate of all that activity on the economy locally is much more than that $12 million cut. It's probably 4 times that by a conservative estimate. So the Lethbridge economy is going to take a significant hit as a result of this. And is it justified? Well, I think that the history of the institution in Lethbridge in terms of what it's given back to the community, the way in which people have been educated and gone out to be productive members of society, all of those things speak for themselves. Institutions like our universities are performing, as Rob said, basic research. A lot of things that go on wouldn't be going on without that kind of institution. And indeed, although it might seem that it's fairly ephemeral as to what these activities are, at one level they're the basis for future discovery. So just one example of that, you'll probably hear about this event This is an event for the Fiat Lux Society. David Naylor, an astrophysicist of all things, will be delivering a talk at the University of Lethbridge on April 25th. So David Naylor has spent his career building detectors for deep space observation. So what the hell good could something like that be to here on Earth, to the activities we're engaged in here? Well, it turns out that, of course, these kinds of detectors, they're used, sure, for signal extraction, for processing data from deep space and so forth. But if you turn those things around and you start to image the Earth, you're using the same sort of technology to do that. And indeed, remote sensing is a huge discipline, which is a big discipline that has got a lot of support in recent years at the university, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But essentially, what these detectors can do is they're sensitive enough so that you can install these on planes, or on these days, these remote-controlled drones, which fly around, and you can check pipelines for whether they're about to rupture, whether they're about to release spills of various sorts, and you can monitor the environment and so forth and so on with these kinds of technologies. In addition to that, these detectors are so sensitive, they're now being repurposed into medical technology to do medical imaging. And so now these most advanced detectors are being used to explore imaging, whole body imaging, in terms of diseases and so forth. And so there's many, many applications, and who would have thought in some of these contexts whether these kinds of things would have been benefits that we would see. But these were the results basically of fundamental research which was going on at the university and has gone on for many years. That's just one kind of element of what we're dealing with here. The other strand, of course, is this philosophical challenge in terms of well, universities, they seem to do fairly esoteric things. Why should we really be worried about that? We should actually control what they're doing because the activity doesn't seem to be that productive. So maybe I'll talk a little bit now about some of the questions that are posed in the document that was circulated publicizing this event. Could acceptance of the letters of expectation, as we were calling these, could these affect the role of boards and academic councils? Well, I've got news for you. The roles of boards and academic councils are already significantly being affected by this government. I'll give you a bit of an example of that. If you're at all familiar with the Post-Secondary Learning Act, there's a section in the Post-Secondary Learning Act which talks about the Campus Alberta Quality Council. So this was a body that was created when the Act was put forward in its most recent revisions, when all of the universities and colleges were consolidated in this one piece of legislation. And as a result of the creation of the Campus Alberta Quality Council, it's charged initially with monitoring the quality of the programs that are delivered by the various institutions. And that seems like a fairly reasonable sort of thing in general terms, if it's a fairly arm's-length process. But increasingly over the years, it's become more and more invasive into the activities that the institutions are engaged in, and not with particularly good effect. So I'll give you one example of this. We, several years ago, at the university, were interested in developing a new degree program, the BSc, Bachelor of Science program, in remote sensing, of all things. And you'll know already I've got a bit of a soft spot for that, having talked about these detectors and so forth, and the uses to which those can be put. Well, it turns out that this new program, this BSc in remote sensing, it called for the use of, obviously, 40 classes for a 4-year degree, but only one of these was a new class. And furthermore, 2 of the top scientists from the Canadian Centre for Remote Sensing, we recruited them to Lethbridge. 2 senior scientists from the Canadian Centre for Remote Sensing came to the University of Lethbridge to set up remote sensing activities here at our university. And we were using these scientists, along with several other scientists who we had, to develop this program, to deliver this program to students, who then would go out and get jobs and be remote sensors in the community, doing environmental monitoring, various other things of that sort. Well, it took us 6 years, to get approval from the minister to deliver that program. Currently, we have a proposal before the Campus Alberta Quality Council to approve a BSc in statistics. You need statistics in pretty much any discipline you're looking at today. In terms of, if you want to do clinical trials, you're going to need statistics. If you want to do financial planning, if you want to do financial modeling, you're going to need statistics. So with the BSc in Statistics, we put together this program. We recruited statisticians to the university. We offer a lot of statistics across the piece anyway. And in addition to the 2 people that we recruited who were pure statisticians, we had about a dozen other people. So we wanted to offer this BSc in Statistics. We've been trying to get this program approved since 2009, and it's not approved yet. So this is another example of the way in which we're already seeing fairly significant interference on the part of the government. Last year, the faculty which I'm the Dean of, the Faculty of Arts and Science, we went through a major process to streamline degree programming. We have lots of students who come to the university from other institutions. About half of the students who are admitted to the university come from other institutions. About half are high school leavers, and so they do the full 4 years with us. But contrary to what the Minister is saying, of course, we bring half of these students into the institution, and in fact, they bring all their credits with them. Indeed, we've built hundreds of programs which allow for a student to complete a diploma somewhere else, come to the University of Lethbridge, do another 2 years with us, and they graduate with a bachelor's degree. Well, we went through this review process last year to make changes to degree programming structure so that it would be even easier for students who are coming to the institution to bring their credits with them and to make it for a simpler system. And most of those reviews took place and changes to the programs went through. And in the end, those were all approved. But there were a couple of programs which were a little bit slower getting the work done. And so they came through review processes this year. And in the case of one of these programs, I won't say which one it is, they wanted to increase the number of courses that the major would require for the degree by 1 course. Okay. So now this year, as opposed to last year, this requires ministerial approval. So if you think that we're going down the road for more intervention, this is actually where we are right now in terms of the kinds of oversight. And well, it's funny because I read in the newspaper recently the minister say, well, I don't want to be involved in micromanagement of the system. Well, from where I'm sitting, we're already suffering from that significantly. Just one last word on the letters of expectation. Where did these come from and what do they mean? I've written at length on this, and you might have seen that piece in the Lethbridge Herald on the weekend in terms of the use of the terminology around these things as being contracts or agreements. Well, it turns out that British Columbia has already been here before us. In fact, the University of British Columbia signed what they call a letter of expectation between the Minister of Advanced Education as a representative of the Government of British Columbia and the Chair of the Board of the University of British Columbia as representative of the University of British Columbia. So why are we making such a fuss about this? Well, on the front page of this document, this letter applies equally to both parties and does not create any legal or binding obligations on the parties. So right up front, they're arriving at an understanding as to, well, what's the university's role, what's the government's role. Here, in the context of the draft letters that we're looking at, we're being told, you better sign these letters, and actually if you don't, well, here's a signal for where we're going if you don't, because we're already cutting your budget by $12 million, and so if you don't get with the program here and give us even more oversight, then things are going to get mightily worse. So maybe I'll give the next speaker a bit of a chance to cover some of the other documents, but again, thanks very much for coming out. Appreciate your time tonight and for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about this, and be happy to answer questions in due course. Thanks.